Greetings, OUWB faculty members. In today's video, we're going to talk about backward course design. Developed by Wiggins and McTighe in 1998, backward course design is a design methodology intended to improve learners' comprehension and knowledge by changing how courses are designed. In other words, we want to improve student understanding by improving the design of the course itself. This is understanding by design. What are we talking about? As stated by Grant Wiggins, one of the founders of the philosophy, it's not a philosophy of teaching or an approach to teaching. It's a planning framework. You're trying to make it more likely by design that when you teach, you're more goal-focused and more effective. It's your job as the instructor of the course to know where you want your students to end up. That would be the intended learning outcomes for the course. The backward course design planning framework does a few things to help you achieve this. One, it helps you keep long-term goals, again, your course learning objectives, in mind. That is, what you want your students to know or what it is you want them to be able to do. Second, it helps you get the right blend of content and student performance. And third, it helps you better engage learners. Consider the following question. If your long-term goal is X, what follows as assessment? What follows as instruction? Again, it is the instructor's responsibility to know where they want students to end up. So the real question here is, how do we help guide students to the knowledge or skills we want them to gain in the course? There are three primary stages associated with backward course design. First, you must begin by identifying your desired results. In other words, what should your students know or what should they be able to do by the end of the course? This is the starting point of the planning framework. And again, the instructor is responsible for that determination. It is recommended that you make these desired results transparent to students. Doing so will give them a clear understanding of the goals for the course and will provide an anchor point for them to refer back to later as needed. Once you've identified your desired results, you'll want to consider what is acceptable evidence for progress. As your learners begin to engage with you, with one another, and with course content, you will want to provide regular opportunities for them to self-assess their progress toward the stated learning objectives. Similarly, such opportunities will give you a sense of what your students know, what they do not yet understand, what's working, and what isn't working in the course. As you write out your desired goals, again, your course learning outcomes, consider what evidence must exist for you to determine whether or not students are making timely and valid progress. Finally, once you know what you want your students to know or what they should be able to do, and once you know what the acceptable evidence will be to determine their progress, then you can begin to identify other elements of your course. This is the basis of backward course design. We're not determining course content first. We're not determining activities first. We're determining desired results, then acceptable evidence, and only then do we actually start building the content, activities, lectures, and assessments that will be part of the course. Let's dive deeper into each of the three steps of backward course design. The first step is identify desired results. Again, what do you want students to know or to be able to do? This question can be applied to different time frames. For instance, what should students know at the end of this activity, at the end of this lecture, or at the end of this course? Often, backward course design is applied at the course level, but it can be similarly applied at smaller or larger scales, such as program design or lecture design. When determining curricular priorities, Wiggins and McTighe provide a hierarchy for categorizing how important content is for meeting your course goals. Those levels are as follows. 1, things that are worth being familiar with. These are the lowest priority content information pieces. They might be mentioned in a lesson, such as supporting information or other interesting facts, but don't really apply to the core goals of the course. Second, what is important to know or do? This is what knowledge and skills should learners master, such as concepts, principles, processes, strategies, and methods. And finally, the third level is enduring understanding. These are the big ideas, the important understandings that transcend the classroom. These are the things you want your students to remember years into the future, and that should make up the core of your desired results for the course. Once you've clearly identified your desired results, the next step is to determine what is acceptable evidence for learners' progress toward those desired results. Here are a couple questions to ask yourself. 1, how will you know if students have achieved your desired results? And 2, what will you accept as evidence of student understanding and proficiency? This stage involves considering formative assessment, and that can be achieved through a number of options, including polling activities, think, pair, share, individual reflection, 1-minute paper, free response questions, homework assignments, lab projects, practical problems, or other authentic tasks. Really, any sort of activity that gets students involved with the content, with one another, and with you. What's important to keep in mind is that your activities and assessments must align with your desired results. It may be beneficial, again, to be transparent about what the desired results are when beginning activities or assessments. Tell students what they will do, tell them why they are going to do it, and tell them what they should get out of the activity. Naturally, you want to include assessments and activities that are measurable or observable so that you can more readily determine if progress is indeed being made. Finally, the last step is to plan your learning experiences and instructional methods. During this final stage of backward design, you will consider how you will teach. Not until this point should you be determining your instructional strategies or learning activities. As you reflect upon your learning goals and assessment methods, you should have a much clearer vision of what teaching strategies would work best to provide students with the information and resources necessary to attain the goals of the course. Some questions to ask yourself at this stage include, what enabling knowledge and skills will students need in order to perform effectively and achieve your desired results? What activities will equip students with the needed knowledge and skills? What will they need to be taught or coached, and how should it best be taught in light of the performance goals? And finally, what materials and resources are best suited to accomplish these goals? This may seem like a lot. Fortunately, there is a template available that has been developed by Wiggins and McTighe, and we can see an image of that right now on the screen. I'll be sure to include a link to this template in the video description below. This video was made possible through a number of references and additional resources, which you can see on the screen. Many of these resources provide excellent in-depth information about backward course design. And certainly, if any of you have further questions and would like to discuss this with me in person, I am more than happy to do that with you as needed. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you found this video helpful.